evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. In Afghanistan, thousands of U.S. troops are working to keep the Kabul airport secure while evacuating tens of thousands of American citizens and refugees. Some are making their way to the planes, stopped or beaten by the Taliban. U.S. officials say they're talking with the Taliban to allow for the safe passage of those fleeing. NTD's exclusive interview with a former Navy SEAL who served in Afghanistan. He has a message to give those who think they served in vain. Leaked audio emerges concerning the dire situation at the southern border, and the Biden administration appeals the Remain in Mexico policy recently ordered by a federal judge. A 2022 Texas gubernatorial race candidate gives us latest details on the southern border crisis. A supplement brand has financially terminated Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's their response to the actor's recent comment about freedom. Texas Governor Greg Abbott tests positive for COVID-19 despite being fully vaccinated against the virus. His office says he'll self-isolate and continue to test daily. The Biden administration is zeroing in on the evacuation mission in Afghanistan, with thousands of U.S. troops working to secure the Kabul airport. U.S. officials say the Taliban is committed to allowing a safe passage for people evacuating from Afghanistan, but troops are ready to respond if needed. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more details.
Around 11,000 Americans and tens of thousands Afghan refugees are trying to make their way to the airport right now to flee Afghanistan. And Biden administration officials now saying they're hopeful and are working to speed up the evacuation process.
Right now, we're looking at one aircraft per hour in and out of HKIA. We predict that our best effort could look like 5,000 to 9,000 passengers departing per day. But we are mindful that a number of factors influence this effort, and circumstances could change. We will keep you updated.
The administration has said they've made an agreement with the Taliban to allow safe passage for those trying to flee. But they also say they're taking that agreement with a grain of salt.
There have been instances where we have received reports of people being turned away or pushed back or even beaten. We are taking that up in a channel with the Taliban to try to resolve those issues. And we are concerned about whether that will continue to unfold in the coming days. As things stand right now, what we are finding is that we are getting people through the gate, we are getting them lined up, and we are getting them on planes.
The Pentagon says the U.S. does not have a way to go into the countryside to pick up these refugees and Americans. They have to make it to the airport themselves. So while the U.S. has secured the airline for military planes and limited commercial flights, it's still a dangerous situation for the people trying to flee. The Biden administration today pushing back against criticism that it should have had a better evacuation plan, saying the fall of Afghan forces was much faster than expected. Officials also continued to defend the decision to withdraw troops.
But President Biden had to think about the human costs of the alternative path as well, which was to stay in the middle of a civil conflict in Afghanistan. There are those who argue that with 2,500 forces, the number of forces in country when President Biden took office, we could have sustained a stable, peaceful Afghanistan. That is simply wrong.
And the National Security Advisor echoing the president's comments on Monday that U.S. troops should not fight a war that Afghans are not willing to fight for themselves. The evacuation mission going on right now is set to end at the end of the month. And in the future, the U.S. plans to use what's called over the horizon or offshore and out of sight techniques to suppress terrorist threats from the Taliban. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And we have more updates on the situation in Afghanistan. The Taliban are making many promises, while the Afghan vice president is urging resistance against the militant group.
After taking control of the Afghan capital, the Taliban held their first press conference on Tuesday. They addressed two issues that the international community is most concerned about: the safety of those who worked for the Allied forces and women's rights.
That we are assuring the safety of all those who have worked with the United States and Allied forces. As for their talents and their skills, we do not want them to leave the country. Women will be afforded all their rights, whether it is in work, or other activities because women are a key part of society. And we are guaranteeing all their rights within the limits of Islam.
The United Nations pledges to continue working with the Taliban to deliver humanitarian aid, and the Taliban are giving assurances that they will allow the UN to continue its work in Afghanistan.
The United Nations humanitarian arm had worked with Taliban for over 18 years. We have never stopped working with Taliban. We've been working with Taliban for all this period of time, and we have a good level of guarantees and understanding with them on how we work and how we deliver humanitarian assistance.
And evacuations continue for U.S. diplomats and citizens in Afghanistan. A NATO official said the runway of Kabul airport has been cleared and air operations resumed on Tuesday. That's after thousands of Afghan residents flocked to the airport on Monday, hoping to board a flight out of the country. The ensuing chaos had forced the U.S. to halt evacuations temporarily. And on Monday, President Biden authorized an additional $500 million to relocate Afghan refugees. And although the Afghan president fled the country, the first vice president is still in Afghanistan. He refers to himself as the caretaker president. He tweeted Tuesday, "It is futile to argue with President Biden on Afghanistan right now. Join the resistance." The first vice president had previously promised never to bow down to the Taliban.
A former U.S. Navy SEAL says the world needs America's strength right now more than ever. And the way America left Afghanistan did not send a good message. NTD's Jason Perry with that exclusive interview.
Former Navy SEAL Jimmy Graham served in many high-risk environments, including Iraq and Afghanistan. He said leaving Afghanistan was not the issue. He said the issue was actually how we left, when the troops were originally supposed to be withdrawn by September 11th.
If there was a scheduled withdrawal under normal conditions, there's nothing wrong with that. There should be that, and it should be put in place. But the second you say we're going to come take over a city that you occupy, we're going to take over a sovereign U.S. territory. That's where you draw a line saying, hey, the date just moved back. So now you're not coming in here at all.
He said we could have left with a show of strength, rather than leaving in weakness with our tail between our legs. The U.S. military is now coordinating with the Taliban and is expected to have a complete evacuation in 2 weeks. Do you really think that no one in the Biden administration knew that things were going to happen this way?
I don't. I think that's pretty apparent that they didn't, either they got bad intel or they didn't respond to the intel. But yeah, everything points to they didn't know this was coming, and it's unfortunate, obviously.
I asked Graham if there were any underlying issues with the Afghan military, and he said they were lacking a crucial trait that many might think has nothing to do with military service.
I think that there has to be some kind of honor, some compassion against for your fellow man, for your fellow troops, whatever your belief system is. You must start there. Like I tell people, when they're building security teams of any caliber, whether it be for church security or it's police officers and SWAT teams or it's schools, you can't start broken. You have to start with that character, that person that says, I would die for you, and then you build from there. But you can't start with that person who's going to, hide under the desk.
Graham had a message for fellow veterans and people who knew someone who lost their life in Afghanistan.
A friend of mine that works for a corporation with veterans programs and said some of the vets are taking it hard, saying things like, what a waste, 20 years wasted. All my buddies that died for nothing. That's very caustic talk. Don't repeat that. If somebody else says it, you're not in charge of them, but don't repeat that because that strips the honor from anyone who's ever served or maybe lost their life over there. The fact that we're breathing free air right now is a testament that it did work. Yes, things change. Yes, there's new intelligence and new developments, but it doesn't take anything away from the honor that was achieved and earned by those who lost their lives and served in Afghanistan.
He also said it was irresponsible to leave behind the Afghans who worked alongside Americans for 20 years and that they will most likely be murdered. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And this just in, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has tested positive for the CCP virus. He's fully vaccinated and is showing no symptoms. According to a statement released by the governor's office, Abbott has been getting tested daily, and today was the first positive test result. A spokesman said Abbott is isolating in the governor's mansion in Austin and receiving monoclonal antibody treatment. Texas First Lady Cecilia Abbott has tested negative, and officials have notified everyone Abbott has been in close contact with. Abbott was fully vaccinated in December 2020. Leaked audio indicates officials are concerned about the southern border. This is after the Biden administration appealed a federal judge's order to reinstate the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy. NTD's Jason Perry spoke with conservative commentator and 2022 Texas governor candidate Chad Prather to find out the latest on the Texas-Mexico border.
The city of Del Rio is
2022 Texas governor candidate Chad Prather says the media doesn't always cover the most important issues Americans are facing.
So with that whole deal, obviously what the situation that's going on in Afghanistan is going to block a lot of the news, right? It's amazing how these news stories pop up and you got another crisis every single day that's going to get people's attention diverted away from the issues that are going on. And one of the big things that's going on right here at home, of course, is our southern border.
Texas is continuing to see record numbers at the southern border, with over 1 million illegal immigrants arrested at the U.S.-Mexico border so far this year.
Secretary Mayorkas came down to the border last week, and of course there was a leaked audio of him saying this is unsustainable. There's no future here if we continue this process. Of course, the Biden administration doesn't want that audio getting out there.
Let's have a listen to the leaked audio from Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas.
It's unsustainable. These numbers cannot continue. We cannot get to a point where we were a couple weeks ago, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. We're looking at the policy options.
Prather recently visited the southern border.
But, recently I met with Sheriff Joe Frank Martinez down in Valverde County, which is, the city of Del Rio is the county seat there. They're apprehending 1,100 illegals coming across the border every single day. Now, Sheriff Joe Frank is a Democrat, right? And he admitted that he didn't like the last administration. He admitted to me he didn't like the Trump administration. But in the same breath, he said the Trump administration, their policy worked. We didn't have the issues that we have going on.
The Biden-Harris administration has containing the COVID-19 crisis at the top of their immediate priorities list. Prather says their words are not matching their actions.
If you cared about the spread of COVID and shutting down the pandemic and creating a real response, you would shut down the southern border. It wasn't long ago they were restricting interstate travel, right? There were California even said that they weren't going to allow people to travel from Texas or Florida because of their lack of mandates. If you can restrict interstate travel among states, then we can certainly do it as a nation. We can restrict those coming into the state from a foreign nation.
He also says the federal government needs to hold countries like Mexico, Honduras, and Guatemala accountable because of the millions in foreign aid they receive. He encourages people to visit Prather22.com to see solutions to the issues people are facing. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Do you know how much a COVID vaccine costs? According to some, Pfizer is overcharging for its shots. NTD's Arian Pazdar visited their protest and he asked them if vaccine mandates, such as the one starting in New York City today, allow vaccine makers to hike prices even more.
Countries around the world are vaccinating its residents, which can bring a lot of money to companies like Pfizer. Now these people here are protesting what they call Pfizer's greed because the pharmaceutical company raised its vaccine prices by 23%.
Pfizer greed has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Pfizer greed has got to go!
Taxpayers are paying this company $24. They don't realize that. $24 for a vaccine that costs less than $2 to make.
The protest was organized by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. They say third world countries can't access vaccines if US companies sell them for high prices. According to them, everyone should be able to get a shot and companies should think less about their own profit.
This year, Pfizer will make $33 billion in profit from the COVID vaccine.
So if everyone has to get the vaccine due to mandates, would that allow companies like Pfizer to hike their prices even more?
There is so much politics with COVID-19 from the very beginning. And government mandates or any of these requirements, of course the pharmaceutical companies will play off all of those to their advantage. There will be additional profit made with mandates.
NTD reached out to Pfizer for comment, but didn't hear back before airtime. Arian Pazdar, NTD News, New York.
Arnold Schwarzenegger recently made a comment that didn't go over too well with some freedom-loving Americans. Now, a big-name supplement brand says this terminates their support for Arnold's projects. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
Defense. This is a very difficult decision because me personally and everybody at Redcon One has always loved Arnold.
That's Aaron Singerman, founder of Redcon One, an American sports supplement brand. They've decided to no longer sponsor the Arnold Classic, a bodybuilding competition co-founded by Schwarzenegger. That's because of his "Screw Your Freedom" comment, a comment Schwarzenegger made last week in a video discussion.
There is a virus here. It kills people, and the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom, because with freedom comes obligations and kind of responsibilities.
Why do you think this statement was un-American?
Well, I think that for me, when I think of Arnold, I think of a great success story, American success story coming from Austria with all these aspirations and hopes and creating this tremendous success. So I think of "screw your freedom," saying "screw your freedom" is the exact opposite of the reason why Arnold came to America in the first place, to create all the success. So it seems un-American to me because we're all about freedom.
Singerman says they've sponsored Arnold Classic for years and have spent anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 a year on sponsorship. Arnold Classic hasn't gotten back to us for comment. Singerman says he believes people have the freedom to choose whether they want to be vaccinated or wear a mask.
Do you think more people should do what you guys are doing whenever a celebrity or a company doesn't value their values?
Yeah, well, I think absolutely. So, I think that people need to start voting more with their dollars and supporting people that, or companies or celebrities or whatever that share the same views, because that's a way for things to change. I truly hope that the country comes back together and we somehow get rid of this divide. But if you disagree with somebody, it's too easy to just keep going, let the status quo keep moving forward and not do anything about it. And I think there are more people out there, business owners and individuals, that should vote with their dollars.
Arnold Schwarzenegger addressed his comment in The Atlantic. He said, "I'll admit calling people schmucks and saying screw your freedom was a little much, even if I stand by the sentiment. But there is nothing that I'm more passionate about than keeping America great, and it's the only subject that can make me lose my temper." Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signed an executive order Monday allowing parents the final decision on whether or not their child should wear a mask at school. Under the order, if a mandate is imposed by a school district, parents are now allowed to opt out. The Republican governor said in a statement that no one cares more about the health and well-being of a child than a parent. He said districts will make the decision they believe are best for their schools, but parents will have the ultimate decision-making for their individual child's health and well-being. The governor also noted that hospitals are filled with adults with COVID-19 as opposed to kids, adding that in his view, requiring parents to make their children wear masks to solve what he called an adult problem is the wrong approach. Lee said the Tennessee Department of Health had advised him on the executive order. The order comes after numerous parents have protested against mask mandates in several schools districts across the state. Following the governor's order, Tennessee's largest school district, Shelby County Schools, said its school board is consulting with legal counsel. It, along with at least one other district, say they will still require masks. And Tennessee's former top vaccination official is being accused of sending a dog muzzle to herself to fabricate a threat. This comes after an investigation concludes the muzzle was paid for with her credit card from an Amazon account in her name. But the former official is denying the exact accusation. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Tennessee's former chief vaccine official, Dr. Michelle Fiscus, was sent a dog muzzle a week before she was fired in early July and claimed it was sent to intimidate her. She previously appeared on CNN to discuss the claims. However, an investigation by the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security has found that the muzzle was paid for with Fiscus's own American Express credit card from an Amazon account in her name. The investigative report for the case, which concluded Monday, was first obtained by Axios. Special Agent Mario Vigil wrote in a memo attached to the case that there is no evidence to indicate that the dog muzzle was intended to threaten Dr. Fiscus. Fiscus told investigators that she'd been singled out and criticized by some members of the public and several state legislators for her role in the state's vaccine program and authoring a memo that said minors could obtain medical care without parents' permission. According to the report, 2 Amazon accounts in Fiscus's name were found through subpoena. One she shared with investigators, while the other was used to purchase the Muzzle. The report stated, the results of this investigation indicate that purchases from both Amazon accounts were charged to the same American Express credit card in the name of Dr. Michelle D. Fiscus. In an interview with News Channel 5 Monday, Fiscus admitted the charge for the Muzzle showed up on her bank statement, but denied buying it.
I can't tell you how that happened, except that I have used that credit card to purchase travel and register for conferences and other things that have been reimbursed by the state of Tennessee.
She indicated to the outlet that someone who works for the state government could be behind it.
I think there's enough information at the state that if they wanted to fabricate this, they surely have access to my credit card number in files.
Fiscus also said in a tweet that the second Amazon account was apparently accessed from Washington State, where she says she's never been. Fiscus says she's asked the state for the full unredacted report to investigate further. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Up next, a robot that can do backflips. We learn more about how a team designs it and what challenges they face in the process. And people enjoy food, music, and farm-themed attractions at the Illinois State Fair, now reopened after the lockdown. Find out more here on NTD News. A new humanoid robot is now able to do free running, and it can even do backflips. Boston Dynamics developed the robot, and their team says that if the robot can showcase the same movement as an adult person, the possibilities could be limitless. NTD's Kevin Hogan brings us more.
Meet Atlas. This robot is somewhat of a show-off, as it can do parkour routines, jump over obstacles, and even perfectly land backflips. The team at Boston Dynamics who developed Atlas says it has red, green, and blue cameras and depth sensors that can help it read the terrain.
Atlas stands about 5 feet tall, weighs about 190 pounds. It's battery powered and hydraulically actuated with 28 degrees of freedom.
Atlas is an R&D tool, and the team is encouraged to push it to its limits. The robot has evolved over the last decade, and now it's able to use its cameras to coordinate its movements instead of having to be pre-programmed. But the team says it's learned a lot from building robots that can fall on their face and get back up.
It can be frustrating sometimes. The robots crash a lot. It's not the robot just magically deciding to do parkour. It's kind of a choreographed routine, much like, a skateboard video or a parkour video where, it's an athlete that's practiced these moves dozens or hundreds of times even to get to that, that high level, that exciting, capability.
Atlas has 3 computers on board that make calculations for its movements, and the team has created template behaviors that the robot can use to know what to do in different situations. The staff say they are helping develop skills that the next generation of robots will need. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
The U.S. Open tennis tournament is just less than 2 weeks away. The player, who's ranked 3rd in the world, says he would not get the COVID vaccine unless it was mandatory to compete.
23-year-old tennis star Stefanos Tsitsipas is refusing to get the CCP virus vaccine, even as the Association of Tennis Professionals, or ATP, is encouraging players to do so.
I haven't. No one has told me anything. No one has made it a mandatory thing to be vaccinated so far. At some point I will have to. I'm pretty sure about it, but so far it hasn't been mandatory to compete. So I haven't done it, no.
Another tennis great, Rafael Nadal, said he has been vaccinated. He said people have a responsibility to get the vaccine so that everyone can be safe. Yet in May, Nadal told Spanish newspaper La Voz that people should be free to make their own choices and that no one can be forced to take the vaccine. And due to the pandemic, the U.S. Tennis Association says fans will not be able to watch the qualifying rounds at the U.S. Open this year. After losing in the first round at Wimbledon, world number 3 Tsitsipas says it was hard to compete in the COVID-19 bubble. That's where players have to observe protocols and stay in hotels to minimize the spread of the virus. But when asked if he would rather win a Grand Slam or be number 1 in the world, Tsitsipas chose a Grand Slam.
I don't know. I feel like winning a major can give you so many points, so much confidence that eventually you're going to make it to number 1. And talking about that, in the position I am, it is going to be a big difference. If I would be ranked outside the top 10 or at around 8 or 7 in the world, it's a different story. But my answer to that would be a Grand Slam, let's say. Yeah.
Roger Federer, who is expected to be out for many months due to a knee surgery, has already received the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, whereas Novak Djokovic said he hopes the vaccine would not become mandatory for players and didn't comment on his own vaccination status.
Illinois is starting up its annual state fair again after closing during the lockdown. In addition to food, music, and fun, the fair's farm-themed and educational attractions present a unique experience for visitors.
At the annual state fair in Springfield, Illinoisans enjoy food and fun. Aside from lively music and rides, the fair showcases Illinois' proud agriculture tradition. There are various farm-themed attractions like animal races and a butter sculpture of a cow, an unofficial icon of the fair since the 1920s. 16-year-old Jill Eukin from Muhammad, Illinois, was invited to speak at the Meet the Farmers event. As part of a supervised agriculture experience project, the high school junior successfully cultivated and harvested 500 thriving sweet potato plants, an unusual crop in Illinois.
Looking out over my plot of land and seeing it first all planted and put together and being like, wow, like this is it. This is what my life's kind of dedicated to for now this summer and into fall.
Also at the fair was the Looking for Lincoln organization that manages the 43-county Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area.
Lincoln is one of those iconic figures that there's so much we can learn from him and his leadership style and his character, his honesty, his integrity, that I think that we don't use history often enough to inform the present.
So it's not just all about me, but it's about trying to help people be the kind of people that they really want to be, the best kind of people.
Of all the smiling faces, of all the kids who already know who he is and come running up and give him a hug, I think those are all the things that says we're going to be okay.
Last year, the Illinois State Fair was canceled because of the pandemic. While the crowd is smaller than previous years, people are enjoying the outdoor festivities.
We've been cooped up for too long. It's time to live.
This year's fair remains open until August 22nd.
Coming up, Apple says its image scan feature is misunderstood. A tech expert questions Apple's direction with the technology. And California's 2-year drought is taking a toll on the state's almond orchards. Almond farmers say there may be fewer almonds coming out of California. That and more when we return on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
find her.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes. Make a plan today.
California's Los Angeles County is under a new mask mandate. The county health department says people are required to wear a mask at major outdoor events, regardless of vaccination status. It's in addition to existing orders issued last month, which require masks in most public indoor spaces. Under the new mandate, people must now also wear masks at major outdoor events, except when eating and drinking. A major outdoor event is defined as a gathering of 10,000 people or more in one outdoor location, such as concerts or festivals. The county says event operators will be responsible for ensuring patrons follow mask rules. The new mandate was issued on Monday, August 16th, and will be in effect starting Thursday, August 19th. It will continue until further notice. And Apple received backlash for threatening user privacy. NTD's Eileen Ang spoke with a tech guru to hear his perspective on the company's use for the planned image scan technology.
An Apple executive explained how its planned child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, detection system will work. That's after backlash that the software would threaten user privacy protections. Apple said the system would prevent privacy violations by never learning any information about iCloud-stored images that don't have a positive match to the CSAM database. But one tech guru still has doubts about the system's accuracy.
I don't know how can they distinguish between me kissing my 10 years old grandchild when he's naked in the pool and a pervert trying to do something with a 10-year-old child, but kudos to Apple if they can.
Apple ensures that the database is not controlled by a single entity or government. It uses several interlocking mechanisms, and a person will review its findings to prevent errors. While Haber is aware that many tech companies are making efforts to tackle child abuse and pornography, he questions Apple's ultimate goal.
It's slightly shocking because Apple was priding itself on privacy. On the other hand, they can say that they are the good guys in this case, because they are doing it to prevent crime. And by the way, if they are doing it to prevent crime, then they quote-unquote have the right now to scan every picture, right? So what's the end game here? Why they are doing it? It escapes me.
According to one report, iPhones make up 55% of the U.S. smartphone market. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Heartbroken parents protest against drug deaths in Northern California. They're spreading awareness about illegally made fentanyl that may be easily obtained in the market. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
On Monday, parents and advocates united in Sacramento to protest drug death markets. Parents told story after story of their lost young ones.
My son had consumed half of what he thought was a blue M30 oxycodone pill, and that half pill took his life.
The devastated parents say drug dealers are using online platforms like Snapchat to illegally distribute drugs, targeting youth. They added that California lawmakers are not doing enough statewide. Supporters then joined a rally at the Capitol building, joined by others whose children were killed by fentanyl poisoning over the last year.
Not only did we not know about this issue, but none of Zach's friends and the parents knew about this issue. And I know that Zach would be looking down and saying, if you know all of this, you have to tell everybody. You have to tell everybody he's right there.
Laura Didier and her husband lost their son in December 2020. He was 17 years old. According to the DEA, Fentanyl is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Its pharmaceutical version was developed for pain management in cancer patients by applying it to the skin. But nowadays, it can be laced with other drugs. This results in unintentional overdoses.
It's got to be the public service. It's got to be people being held accountable for what they're doing, because these kids are being deceived to death.
Most advocates are part of the California Peace Coalition.
Personally, I can't imagine anything more painful than losing a child. And I have so much admiration for these mothers and fathers who are getting up and just fighting for other families not to experience the same tragedy.
Snapchat's community guidelines tell users not to use Snapchat for any illegal activities. But Haig feels that the only way for Snapchat to take further action is if the law compels them to. The parents also demand lawmakers for policies to solve homelessness, drug addiction, and untreated mental illness. They plan to take their action to Washington, D.C. Reporting in Sacramento, David Lamb, NTD News.
Almonds are one of California's top crops and its biggest agricultural export. But the current drought is threatening the state's water-intensive almond orchards.
California produces around 80% of the world's almonds, but the current drought continues to threaten the state's $6 billion industry. Unable to obtain or afford water, some almond growers have stopped irrigating their orchards, letting the trees die. Others are leaving fields unplanted to save water for their almonds.
We're in the second year of this drought, but it's really, really serious. And it's as serious, if not more so, than any drought that we've been in before.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, California has around 2,500 square miles of land throughout the Central Valley dedicated to almond trees.
As you can see, there's one orchard here that's drying up because they just didn't have the money to buy the water. And we're seeing this all over the valley.
Almond orchards need water year-round, requiring approximately 10% of California's water supply. However, the U.S. Drought Monitor reported that 88% of the state was in extreme drought in early August, with Central Valley facing the worst conditions. State and federal officials have reduced water for agriculture, forcing many farmers to leave fields unplanted or switch to higher value crops that use less water. Farmers say this will impact the amount of almonds produced in California.
And we've had to fallow land. Almost a third of my farm is fallow in order to keep our trees alive, to save the water from the fallow land for our trees.
Some critics say almonds are not sustainable at current levels in California. One nonprofit suggests banning almond orchards in areas that don't have adequate water supplies.
If we're conserving in the cities so that they can grow more almonds, it's simply not fair because it's not benefiting the majority of Californians.
The drought has drained reservoirs which supply water to farms in the Central Valley. Shasta Lake, the state's largest reservoir, is only 33% full, while Lake Oroville, the second largest, is only 26% full, according to the California Department of Water Resources. If the water situation does not improve, some almond growers are preparing to tear out their orchards years earlier than planned.
And people in the country's southwest can expect even less water come October. That's after federal officials issued a historic shortage declaration for a reservoir amid the drought. Gloria Zhou reports.
U.S. officials have declared a massive water shortage in the American Southwest that will trigger drastic supply cuts there. Separately, 10 governors have appealed for federal aid, qualifying farmers and ranchers in their states to seek special assistance. It's the first time officials have declared a shortage at the Lake Mead Reservoir, which will see water supply cuts to Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico beginning in October. It's the largest reservoir in the country, serving some 25 million people from Los Angeles to Las Vegas.
We're experiencing it every day in the Colorado River Basin and in other basins in the West. I think the best strategy for planning is to think about a broad range of scenarios and a broad range of potential hydrology, and to work closely with our partners in the basin to try to think through all of those scenarios.
Diminishing reservoir supplies will mean less water and tough decisions for agriculture, cities, and Native American tribes in the parched region, which is in its 22nd year of drought. The drought has brought reservoir levels to historic lows and drastically reduced animal feed supplies across the region. It's sent hay prices soaring as many ranchers and farmers are forced to auction off livestock or to consider selling their land for development. The latest U.S. Drought Monitor report shows drought conditions across 99% of the region, affecting over 59 million Americans. And U.S. officials have warned that reservoir supplies are projected to keep falling.
The Pentagon is sending help to Haiti after a 7.2 magnitude earthquake hit the Caribbean nation. Defense officials are creating a task force aimed at search and rescue.
The Pentagon task force will deploy to Haiti at least 10 helicopters, 9 Coast Guard vessels, a Coast Guard aircraft, and a Navy amphibious ship. They will set up 4 field hospitals later this week.
The U.S. military continues to provide unique air, medical, logistical, and engineering capabilities in support of USAID and their Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance. They are leading this effort. We are supporting them to help save lives and alleviate human suffering in these critical early stages of a disaster relief operation.
The U.S. Coast Guard is already in Haiti, airlifting earthquake victims to hospitals in the country's capital. According to a Coast Guard spokesperson, they've already lifted 38 victims to receive medical care. At the same time, Haiti is also suffering from flooding caused by Tropical Storm Grace.
So as a citizen, it also worries me because I know that my fellow citizens are sleeping outside and they might be impacted because of the rain and the possible flash floods that may occur.
The earthquake on Saturday has claimed at least 1,400 lives and injured over 6,000. It also damaged local hospitals, making rescue efforts more difficult. Officials are expecting the death toll to rise.
And an update on the death toll in Haiti. It now stands at over 1,900 as of this afternoon, and almost 10,000 are injured. Tropical Storm Grace had forced a temporary halt to search and rescue efforts. And an unnamed woman has sued folk singer-songwriter Bob Dylan. She alleges he sexually abused her after giving her drugs and alcohol in 1965 when she was 12 years old.
A spokesman for Dylan, now 80, said the allegations were false. He said the 56-year-old claim is untrue and will be vigorously defended. The woman, identified only as JC, filed a civil lawsuit late on Friday with the New York Supreme Court. She alleges that Dylan sexually abused her at his New York apartment over a 6-week period, and that the incidents left her emotionally scarred and psychologically damaged to this day. The lawsuit states that Dylan, who was in his 20s at the time, exploited his status as a musician to provide JC with alcohol and drugs and sexually abuse her multiple times. The plaintiff is seeking unspecified damages. Her lawsuit was submitted just ahead of a New York State deadline, which allows people to file legal claims alleging child sexual abuse that in the past were too old to pursue due to a statute of limitations. Dylan emerged from the Greenwich Village folk scene in the early 1960s to become one of the most acclaimed and influential artists of the rock era, with hits including Blowin' in the Wind and Like a Rolling Stone. He has sold more than 125 million records globally and won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2016.
Coming up, ticket prices for U.S.-bound flights from China skyrocket over 400%. It's likely because many Chinese students are flocking to the U.S. for the next school year. That and more in just a moment here on NTD News. Many Chinese students are rushing to the U.S. At an airport in Shanghai, a line of thousands of feet long, all of them waiting to board an international flight. NTD's Don Ma has more.
A recent online video captures Chinese students lining up en masse at a Shanghai airport, and many of them are going to the U.S. The huge demand on top of a shortage of U.S.-bound flights from China, ticket prices have soared more than 400%. According to Chinese media Yicai News, mid-August is the peak season for Chinese students heading overseas. It comes just ahead of the fall term, the start of the new school year.
There's an economy class seat for August 25th. The ticket fare is 21,360 yuan. The business class seat is 76,862 yuan. August 25th is peak season for international students to return to school. These prices are the lowest right now. There are higher price tickets that are more than 90,000 yuan.
Yitai News also reports there are fewer than 20 direct flights traveling from China and the US right now.
There are not many international flights right now, not many per day. For example, today there were only 2. There's one New York-bound flight today.
A Beijing political affairs commentator tells NTD that there could be a number of reasons behind the demand.
The tide of people rushing to the United States is because the U.S. is still the preferred place to go for people around the world. Another reason is because the situation within China is tense. There are crackdowns happening on the elite. So these people are on edge and hastily rush to the U.S. They don't hesitate to buy a 100,000 yuan ticket.
Hua notes that many are going overseas in search of a better future. Don Ma, NTD News.
Coming up, several wildfires are raging across Europe, including 2 in southern France. The fire started yesterday following a heat wave, and strong winds are helping it spread. And a special exhibit at a Dutch museum uses sounds, smells, and touch to help visually impaired visitors enjoy the artworks. We'll take a closer look after the break.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here with a new message about your Medicare benefits. You may be entitled to transportation, meals, and expanded coverage for dental work that includes extractions, fillings, and dentures, all at no additional cost. Plus, depending on your zip code, you may be entitled to the Medicare benefit that adds money to your Social Security check every single month. Call and get everything you deserve. Call now, it's free.
I'm on a fixed income, so I called to get money added to my Social Security check. They helped me so much.
I called to save money on copays, get prescriptions, transportation, and my dental work covered. I couldn't believe I was spending money I don't have to spend.
Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline, and you can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
In the south of France, 900 firefighters are currently tackling a fast-spreading wildfire. The French president says the situation is worrying. NTD's David Vives has more.
A veil of orange smoke seems to go on for miles and miles. Since Monday night, French firefighters have been trying to contain a fast-spreading wildfire near Saint-Tropez in the southern tourist region of Var. Their efforts are hampered by strong winds, which continue to fan the flames. Some 12,000 acres of land have been burnt so far, the Var prefect's office said. While visiting the firefighters, French President Emmanuel Macron said the worst is over.
3,500 hectares burnt, which is of course a terrible statistic in terms of biodiversity and in terms of our natural heritage. I would like to say here, thanks to this mobilization, the worst has been avoided.
One campsite burned to the ground overnight, while at least 6 were evacuated. Waves of extreme heat have hit much of the Mediterranean region in recent weeks, increasing the risk of wildfires. 2 blazes, also fanned by strong winds, reached out of control near Athens on Monday, forcing the evacuation of local villages.
A Dutch museum came up with a creative way to make its offerings more accessible and enjoyable for visually impaired visitors. We'll take a look at how a special exhibit uses sounds, smells, and touch to help artworks come alive.
Visitors to the exhibition, called The Blind Spot, may say it's a little cheesy, but they mean that as a compliment. The Utrecht Central Museum launched the project this month. It's based on existing paintings, but adds extra dimensions to them, such as sound and smell, including the aroma of ripe cheese. And at this exhibit, museum goers are definitely encouraged to touch. Sighted visitors are encouraged to wear a blindfold as they experience works, including a replica of the 1613 still life with fruit, nuts, and cheese by florist Klaas van Dijk.
I think it's an amazing experience, which is, well, to my idea, quite unique in the Netherlands, which triggers the other senses.
One visually impaired visitor said he wondered at the way the table was physically slanted, but the objects on top of it didn't fall off. According to the artists, the idea for the exhibit had been sparked by an earlier exhibit in which they served food as part of an artwork.
There was this one day, somebody who couldn't see was there at the place where we served food out of this work, and we helped her to touch the painting, and she was blind. To touch and she was very, she had a lot of emotions. She was touched. So then I called Jeroen, and we had this. Well, we have something.
Yeah, it's based on the theme of inclusivity. That moment was the starting point to actually create this exposition.
A staff member at the museum says she considers it a first experiment on the way to further improvements in accessibility.
Ever wondered what your cat is feeling? A company in Canada developed an artificial intelligence app for your phone to help you find out. Here's more.
For those who find cats too mysterious to understand, artificial intelligence might have the answer. A Calgary, Canada company used AI to create the Tably app to decode your cat's emotions. The company, built to help animals in need, uses facial recognition technology. Just take a photo, and the app does the rest.
So our app is Tably, and what it does is it helps human cat owners know if their cat is in pain or not. So it uses facial recognition technology. All you need to do is take a picture with your camera, and then it can give you a result.
It's based on the feline grimace scale, a scientifically proven method to tell if your cat is in pain. The FGS measures ear position, eye wideness, muzzle tightening, whisker moving, and head angle. The Tably app's developers trained the app's algorithm at the Wild Rose Cat Clinic. There, the resident veterinarian hopes to help new cat owners and other vets.
So I really am a crazy cat person first, so I am quite adept at reading their body language, but for other colleagues, new grads who maybe have not had quite so much cat experience, it can be very daunting to know, is your patient painful?
The developers warn, sometimes your cat is just annoyed with you, so you need to take lots of pictures to track it over time. A technology journalist who tested the beta version found another interesting challenge, the notorious black cat.
I used it when I was living with 3 cats, and one of the cats was black, and the machine the app kind of felt it a little bit difficult to read the cat's face, just because black cats have darker faces. There's less light for the complete image.
While this app can read feline faces, it still can't read your cat's body language. Experts recommend paying attention to the cat's behavior as well.
So this app would be a really good, useful part of a tool set that cat owners could use in conjunction with other things to assess how their cat is feeling. So thinking about the rest of the cat's body.
Signs to stay aware of include muscle tension, head placement, and above all, tail movement. Is the feline eating, drinking, toileting, and sleeping like usual? How about aggressive behavior? Have they started hiding? Overall, keep tabs on your furry friends to make sure they're truly staying healthy.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox. have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.